Hey, welcome to the second course video for the song The Contract from 21 Pilots and their album Breach. We've been through a lot of albums lately. This is a pretty heavy lifting song because it does tie into the lore. And obviously, as always, the lore is an allegory for things going on in Tyler's heart and mind, or things that you may be facing as well. So let's get in. We'll take our time with this and walk through. I have seen the music video, so you can find that out. You can find that over on Patreon. But let's get into the details here. All right, The Contract serves as the first single off of Breach, the 8th full-length album from 21 Pilots. Its release was announced alongside the release of the album via social media, 10 years after the release of the album Blurryface and the 4-year anniversary of their album Scaled and Icy. Our new full-length album, Breach, will be here in September. The first song, The Contract, comes out on June 12th. Whoa, that's a big gap between like single releases and an album coming out. Hello, Clancy. Hello, Blurryface. Let's finish this. All right. The name, The Contract, had been hinted at in the previous days through several posts commemorating Blurryface's 10th anniversary, in which several letters were capitalized and edited right after, turning out to spell the song name. After the announcement, the song was teased across all social media several times. Teased all across social media several times. I promise I can read. With a deep voice, presumably Blurryface, speaking parts of the lyrics. Social media teasers, including cryptic posts from the Blurryface account and snippets shared by the band, featured disjointed versions of the lyrics. The Contract starts the final act of the narrative started on Blurryface and continued through Trench, Scaled and Icy, and their latest album, Clancy. Here's what 21 Pilots had to say. The other thing with this melody on The Contract specifically, I've gotten to the point where as I'm singing melodies and working on a lyric and a point of view, I have made my kind of go-to, my tools in the tool belt of how I would sing something or how I would melodically move throughout chords. And this song particularly, I was like, I need to just rethink what a good melody even is. You take exactly what came natural and you do the opposite. So for me, the chorus of The Contract, when I was first starting to sing over this chord progression, it just was like, I've done this, I've heard this, like, what if I were to jump up higher, quicker, and then come back down? And a previous version of me would never think I can go like this. As I'm seeing the melody drawn out, I would never have done that. I just really forced myself to kind of rewire what I think a good melody even is. That's so cool, man. And when you get so far into a career like him, you got to change some things up. Like I mentioned, the Contract music video is over on Patreon. One thing I mentioned as well on the live performance of Drum Show over on Patreon was that I did when I was listening through this album, and at the point of filming this, I've only made it through The Contract, and there's several times Tyler leans into his falsetto or these higher notes, or just these kind of abrupt changes. I was like, dude, he really challenged himself, especially in a live setting, to pull these things off. I check the doors, check the windows, and pull the blinds. I check the clock, wondering what he'll pull this time. So probably the idea of going into the night and shutting things down, like in a sense of hiding, protecting, knowing the night's coming. So, bolstering. Would that be called? What's the word I'm thinking of? It's kind of like on lockdown, but you're bolstering your defenses and just bolting things down. It's almost like putting, like nailing plywood to the windows in a zombie apocalypse. I have a feeling that necromancer's outside. I'm just trying to stay quiet. So the idea of Nico, and in the video we talked about a necromancer is kind of a wizard type character, typically communicating with the dead or utilizing the dead. And he's just trying to stay quiet, just trying to not be noticed. I don't sleep much. That's crazy. How'd you know that? Keep myself up. That's maybe how you know that. See, I was curious on this because it doesn't fully sound like he's speaking from two different voices, even though in the song he does. I don't sleep much. That's crazy. How'd you know that? Keep myself up. That's maybe how you know that. But it's not like the voice of Blurryface. I don't sleep much. That's crazy. How'd you know that? So I was curious exactly how he was tackling that. And so obviously the meaning of this is like, I would assume the necromancer, Nico, those dark sides, understanding that you don't sleep much, that you keep yourself up, but the way they know that is because they can see. Or that he sees him keeping himself up, so that's how he knows you don't sleep much. Let's see if there's any insight here. Nico, the main antagonist in 21 Pilots lore, is meant to be a direct projection of Clancy's insecurities and doubts. With this being the case, it's quite possible Nico himself is quite familiar with Clancy. Of course he is. This would explain why he would be familiar with Clancy's behaviors and strategies, and would explain the paranoia he seems to now be experiencing. I'm going to stay on this side for a minute because there's quite a few things we're going to need to check into. Oh, promises and contracts I used to keep. My hallucination I used to see. Oh, I just thought about a really brilliant ad campaign for Hulu. Hey, Hulu, if you're listening, hit me up or just steal it. What if, like this is a totally side thing, guys. You know the Audible commercials? They're so good. Where like somebody's in a fantasy world fighting whatever, but it turns out they're just sitting and listening to an Audible book. Love those commercials. What if Hulu did It's a hallucination. Not a hallucination, a hallucination. Need a good hallucination? And it's like them inside of the movie. All right, you guys know that's a banger. I kept my part of the contract, now keep yours. The implication is perhaps the other part, the bishops, won't settle for the old deal and want what much more now than they asked for at the beginning. Clancy can't give any more, hence the pleading. In the contract music video, this line appears to be to Josh, the torchbearer. And I was interested too, maybe we can just check while we're here, if there was any like implication to Josh being in red. Maybe we'll get into this on Patreon or something. I can't necessarily do it here. I'm not getting anything immediately. And I don't think this is fully trying to answer my question. Yeah, I guess the only reason maybe Josh is in red is because it's inside of Tyler's mind. And there is kind of this going back and forth, and maybe also in the sense of feeling rejected. He's viewing the torchbearer, the Christ figure, not as an ally, but maybe an opposing factor. So I don't know. That's maybe where my thought would go. Promises and contracts I used to keep. My hallucination I used to see. So we know as well within the lore timeline, I think at this point, Clancy had not received a letter that the torchbearer was writing to him. And so Clancy feels abandoned in this idea that maybe the torchbearer is ultimately like a hallucination, maybe not true, maybe won't follow through. And, you know, in our own lives, if you take that from a faith standpoint, it can get to this feeling of like the pressure's so high, or I keep failing, or I thought that you'd come through for me. And that feeling, you begin to view the Christ figure or Christ himself as this absent figure. He's not there. He didn't come through. Maybe this isn't real anyways. Maybe this idea of faith and God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and all of this is just man-made. It's not true, and your faith begins to fail. So this hallucination may be referencing the Torchbearer character from the Dima storyline. In the music video for Navigating, we learn the protagonist Clancy has been alone since Levitate's video. Tyler explained in the Clancy premiere live stream that the Torchbearer has the ability to project himself into the minds of others, but now Clancy says, "I used to see." This might mean that Clancy doesn't let the Torchbearer into his mind anymore, or that blurry-faced Nico is blocking the Torchbearer out, which could be why Clancy's eyes were red at the beginning. The music video lacked the color yellow, a color bishops can't see, and at the end, both Clancy and the Torchbearer desaturate and fade away. As Clancy is becoming a bishop, he can no longer see the Torchbearer or yellow. Interesting. Wake up and I find out. Did it change up? Wait, did it change up? Is it light out yet? Better find out, bet. Better walk around the edge of the room and the bed. Where I hide my face, pace around. Better try to breathe, pace around. Interesting. So I wonder if this is him giving in or wondering, like, has something changed? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I checked the doors. Okay. Repeated pre-chorus. Repeated chorus. I used to see. Sleep. I found. Tyler has frequently referenced sleep and his lack of it in other songs, and does the same in the contract up until this line. While it represents a lack of peace and comfort, sleep has also been used to represent ignorance or complacency. The music video for Jumpsuit began with Tyler telling the audience, "We've been here the whole time. You were asleep. It's time to wake up." This ties back to the plot beat that the song represents, the middle of Clancy's mental battle with the bishop Nico at the top of his tower. Nico has won over Clancy at this point, offering him sleep, leading into a slower tempo bridge as Clancy succumbs to it. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're taking it in that way, it's not like a peaceful, restful sleep, but maybe a giving in, the sleep that he fights most of the time. And maybe it's a tired of fighting. So again, just kind of giving in and going back into Dima being asleep, not awake to the worlds. That was kind of the whole point, is like he wasn't going to be sleepy anymore. The idea of us as people walking around this world spiritually asleep, just going with whatever the world's telling us. And yet the whole point is that Jesus, through the power of the Holy Spirit, is meant to wake us up, to lead us out of the dark into the light, make us aware of spiritual matters, make us aware of the sin in our own heart, and set us to fight against it. And so it could be this like giving up and falling asleep once again, not paying attention, which we know the cycles within the lore, within our own lives, falling asleep at times. And thankfully, though, which I think gets into my thoughts on City Walls and the Torchbearer being the hero of this story, that he's not going to give up. He's going to keep searching, keep finding, keep waking you up. I want to get out there, but I don't try. So this could be like what I was just speaking to, right? I want to get out of Dima. I want to be out in Trench. I want to be out in the wild, but I don't try because I'm asleep. The narrator is trapped inside his metaphorical room, cornered by a necromancer outside. He wants to escape and face his tormentor. The person who is keeping him trapped in the first place, the room provides safety and rest. He gives up a chance at freedom for the easier choice of complacency. So then we have the repeated pre-chorus, the repeated chorus, post-chorus, and then the outro. I used to see. It felt so real. So yeah, this is him, the lack of faith essentially. But now I plead, just take the deal. I promised you a contract. Oh, it's so sad. I think this is just repeating. Yeah. I feel like there's more there with the idea of a contract. Because I just get curious, what point was the contract made? And you also have this idea, right? Promises and contracts, which I think in some ways points to the written in pencil. What was it? The pencil and pen. So the pencil is that he is going to keep the contract. He's giving in. But the pen is the more permanent, which is the promise that he will keep fighting, but at this point he's going to give in and take the contract. So the contract is more temporary. The promise is deeper. And honestly, if you put that in your own life, there are times that it's like you take the contract, you know, you give in to the thing, whether that's an addiction or a habit, a way of living. You know, maybe you've struggled with lying and you're like, I'm not going to lie. That's the promise. But then you give in to the contract and you lie again and you're so frustrated by it, but you don't give up the fight and you're going to try again. And I think that that's the bigger picture that we're getting into, obviously, with all of the lore, is the don't give up, you know. And especially from a faith perspective, Christ hasn't given up on you. So you don't give up. Keep pushing, keep fighting. You're going to be discouraged sometimes. You're going to fail. But you can keep learning. Remember, it's not a, what was the line? But I know the last one is a poisonous progression. It's not pass or fail. It's a poisonous progression. Anyways, wow. Beautiful song, really incredible video, the way they kind of take you inside what's going on inside of his heart and his mind, in those moments that he's grabbed by the throat, which I think does point back to Jumpsuit, you know, like, if you want me, you're going to have to grab me by the throat and lift me in the air. You're going to have to break both my hands. Let me know your thoughts on this, anything you saw that I didn't see, and we'll have a good conversation about it. Thanks for being with me for this one. I hope to see you in the next one. Again, feel free to go check out the music video. It's over on Patreon. It's just $5, gives you access to a big library of 21 Pilots content that we're still building. So, all right, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for being with me. We're eating good.